Welcome back, our viewers. As we promised at the beginning of the show, that we are going to take you today in a trip to the lovely and beautiful and warm governorate of Aswan. As we are all suffering from the weather conditions and the cold weather here in Cairo, the people of Aswan are enjoying the sun. They are enjoying the beautiful weather there and the beautiful nature. Let's know more about this beautiful governorate in Egypt. What are the most beautiful attractions there? What is the history of that place? That would be our topic for discussion with our dear guest, Dr. Mohammed Nabil. He is an Egyptologist. Hello, sir, and thank you very much for being our guest.
Hello, thank you.
A very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
As Mahi said, Aswan is such a beautiful place. And when it comes to history, I don't know why we are that much unfair with Aswan, as we are talking all the time about Thebes, because
yes,
it was
Luxor.
the capital of Egypt, or Luxor, but Sunet.
Yes. Sunet, yes.
Sunet, it was named after a goddess, a pharaonic goddess,
yes.
Which was carrying the same name.
Yes.
But why we are not that much familiar with the history of Aswan as we are with Thebes or Luxor?
Of course. Luxor is an open-air museum, and it's bigger in terms of monuments. But Aswan is bigger in terms of space, and actually we have more than 20 sites and 20 towns in Aswan. And back to the capital of Egypt, in Aswan we had the first capital of Upper Egypt. If you remember, during the time of Narmer or Menes, there was the war of the unification between Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. So the capital of Upper Egypt was in Aswan, in El Kab nowadays, or Nekheb. And the goddess Nekhbet was the main goddess of Upper Egypt, and she was worshipped there in Aswan. But when we talk about Aswan, we need to know that the name comes from the ancient Egyptian word Sun or Sonet, and Sonet was a goddess, and Sun or Sowen means the market. Or the souk, because it was located on the caravan route between Egypt and Sudan at the time. And it was the link between the eastern desert and the western desert at the time. When we talk about Aswan, we need to talk about Nekhem, we need to talk about Idfu, we need to talk about Komombo, Fila, Sohail, or the beautiful places on the western part of Aswan. If we talk about Aswan, we need to talk about Abu Simbel and the temples on Lake Nasser. So Aswan is really huge, and which is better than all of this is the Aswan people or the Nubians who live there. But of course, Aswan is really beautiful, and we do a lot of marketing now, because when you go to Luxor, you take the cruise from Luxor to Aswan. So they are actually connected together, because we have 160 Nile cruises navigating all the time between these two beautiful cities.
As we said, Dr. Nabil, that it's a beautiful place, Aswan. It's always sunny. It's always enjoying a very beautiful weather. What are the most beautiful attractions there in Aswan that the people should go and visit, as we are now in the mid-year vacations? I believe that many parents order kids to go and visit these beautiful places in Luxor and Aswan to know more about their country and to know more about their history.
Yes. We have, of course, one of the most beautiful attractions there is the Temple of Fila. And the Temple of Fila is the temple of Goddess Isis.
It's a beautiful temple, I have to mention. I love to go to this place.
It is the most romantic temple in the ancient Egyptian civilization. Because
and you go by boat, it's a magnificent place.
Because it's located on an island, and it tells us, or it narrates the story of Isis and Osiris. And she loved her husband Osiris, and unfortunately he was killed by his brother Seth. So she was crying and she was tearing, and the tears of Isis became the flood of the Nile. So she was the goddess of healing, she was the goddess of flooding, and she was the goddess of the inundation in the ancient Egyptian civilization. So this is one of the most beautiful attractions and temples over there. And of course the temple was relocated from an island to another island, which is Angelica. So it's not located on the original place, but it was removed after building the high dam we had to move 9 temples. So that's why it's one of them. And the temple was built during the time of the Ptolemies. And this means that the Ptolemies, or the Greeks, when they came to Egypt, they started to build their temples in the form or in the design of the ancient Egyptian temples. And this is one of the most beautiful attractions. The temple actually also shows a beautiful scene. It shows the sources of the Nile. It shows God Hapi, the god of the Nile, and there is a huge snake is protecting God Hapi. This means that the ancient Egyptians wanted to protect the sources of the Nile. And the governors of Aswan at the time, like Pepinacht and Herihuf and all these governors during the 6th dynasty, they sent expeditions, or they sent expeditious campaigns to Nubia to see and to protect the sources of the Nile. So this is a major issue since the time of the ancient Egyptians to protect the sources of the Nile.
I don't know why the most important cities in ancient Egypt were both trade centers, like you have said. Aswan was a market, or its name even was derived from the word market or souk, and at the same time it was a military center to defend our borders, to be a place where we train our soldiers, stuff like that. Is this true? I mean, the pharaohs were that much keen to have their most important cities gathering both elements together,
economy and
military.
Exactly, because Aswan actually is located in the first nome of Upper Egypt. In the ancient Egyptian civilization, we had 42 nomes, or 42 governorates at the time. And Aswan was located in the first nome, and it was called Ta City. Ta City means the land of the archers. So this means that it had a great military importance at the time, because this was the borders of Egypt, so they had to defend themselves, and they had to defend Egypt from the Nubians or the foreigners at the time. So this means that it had a great military importance. And also in Nubia, or in Nabata, we had also castles like Buhin and all these castles to secure Egypt. In the western desert, the borders, they built temples and castles to protect Egypt from the Libyans.
or I mean sculpturing, or carving.
You mean,
I mean,
but of course, the Abu Simbel was carved because it's a temple, but the castles were built.
Okay, I'm asking this question because I think that also Aswan was the source of granite.
Yes, a quarry. Yes.
And I mean,
one of the most beautiful attractions there is the quarry, or the granite quarry, where we have the unfinished obelisk, and the obelisk goes back to the New Kingdom period. And when we go to visit this beautiful quarry, you will see how the ancient Egyptians used to cut their obelisks and their primitive techniques that they used to move the obelisks. When you find any piece of granite stone in Egypt, blindly you say that it comes from Aswan, and it comes from the quarry over there. So that's why Aswan played an important role at the time, economically, because it was the market, it was the quarry to bring the stones, and also military, because it was located on the borders of the Egyptian kingdom at the time, to protect Egypt and the Egyptian people. So the pharaohs paid great attention to this part. And actually in Aswan there was a great religious importance, because on the Elephantine Island we have the temple of God Khnum. And God Khnum was the god who created the ancient Egyptians, and he used a pottery wheel, to create the Egyptians. And we always say that people are, or come from dust to dust, or from ashes to ashes. So the ancient Egyptians knew that the Egyptians were made out of clay. That's why God Khnum used his pottery wheel, making or creating the Egyptians. Later on, goddess Isis became the dominant goddess of Aswan.
Dr. Nabil, what other attractions other than the Fiala temple is there in Aswan? Because it's not only the pharaonic monuments which are there in Aswan, but also we have the tomb of
actually we have so many things, like For example, we still have pharaonic temples like Edfu Temple, and Edfu Temple is the most preserved temple in the ancient Egyptian civilization, and again it goes back to the time of the Greeks. It's the most preserved temple. So if you want to study any temple of the ancient Egyptian civilization, you need to go to visit this huge temple.
I need to clarify here, we are talking about the governorate of Aswan, not the city of Aswan.
Yes.
Because Edfu is another city.
It's 90 kilometers to the south, to the north
of Aswan. Because this is very important. We are talking about the governorate, the province of Aswan.
The province of Aswan, yes.
Not Aswan as a city.
Yes.
Sir, are we still...
yes, I was thinking about the tomb of Aga Khan, but I forgot.
Actually, this is the mausoleum.
Yeah.
And this shows also the love, or it narrates the love story between him and
his wife, and the red rose.
And the red rose that she goes every morning to put it on his mausoleum. We have the high dam, and the high dam is 17 times bigger than the Great Pyramid.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So this means that we have modern
and
buildings.
By the way, you are
Aswan.
talking about the size of the dam which we see above water.
Yes, the high dam is 111 meters, and the
But as far as I know, that we have thrown into the water stones 16 times more than those used to build the Great Pyramid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this was a national project, and this is what we need right now in Egypt. We need a national project that all the Egyptians join and to build. That's why the cruise or the visit of Luxor and Aswan is very important for everyone.
Indeed.
It's for the loyalty to see the ancient Egyptian civilization, to see the high dam. The high dam was built in 1960 and was opened or used in 1970. So it's only 40 or 45 years ago. So we have modern buildings. Also in Aswan, we have the dam of Aswan.
If it's still there or no, is there an island for rare plants?
Yes, this is the Kitchener's Island, or the Botanical Garden, and it's really beautiful. And it had, or it has, the house of Lord Kitchener, and it's really huge, and it has very rare plantations and trees since the time of the royal family of Egypt. So that's why if you go to Aswan, you have huge...
Is it well preserved?
It is very well preserved. It's really beautiful. And actually the scenery there is very beautiful. The weather there is very beautiful. You can go to the Botanical Garden. You can go to see the beautiful museum of Aswan. It's located on an island. You can go to Fila. You can go to the High Dam. You can go to the West Bank to see the beautiful tombs were carved in the mountains back to the middle and the old kingdom of the ancient Egyptian civilization. And in one of the beautiful tombs of one of the governors, he told us that when he went to Africa, he brought with him a dwarf to dance for King Pepi II. And actually, there is a drama of civilization in Aswan.
As you've just mentioned, it's another symbol how the pharaohs really considered the East as life and West as death. So they lived in the East and they buried their dead
or deceased.
Yep, in the West. True?
This is true because the sun rises from the east, which means life, and sets on the west, which is death for the ancient Egyptians. And this is along the River Nile. That's why when we go to see the pyramids, you can see them on the west bank. If you go to Thebes, the Valley of the Kings, the Valley of the Queens on the west. Aswan, the tombs are on the west. But here I have such an interesting story to tell you about one of the beautiful temples in Aswan Governorate, which is Komombo Temple. The temple of Komombo is the double temple in the ancient Egyptian civilization, and it was dedicated to two gods, to Horwer or Horus and his brother Sobek. There was a big fight between these two gods. Horus was the good god and Sobek was the bad guy. He was the evil god, and they had this fight, and they went to goddess Ma'at, and she was the goddess of truth and justice in the ancient Egyptian civilization, and she ordered them to have one temple, and they have to live together in this temple. So that's why the temple is repeated. They are the same scenes, but on one side you can see Horus, on the other side you will see Sobek, and this is what Ma'at did to reconcile between the two gods.
And there was a real reconciliation between them?
This is actually because they were both worshipped in this beautiful temple. And this shows that the ancient Egyptians believed in truth and justice, and Goddess Ma'at was represented. Actually, the scene is really beautiful, and it's represented on the walls. And it shows Goddess Ma'at with the ostrich feather. And the ostrich feather was the sign of truth and justice, because the ostrich has two wings, and they are equal to each other. And this shows truth and justice. In that temple, again, we have a rare scene shows the medical instruments that used by the ancient Egyptians. So
medical instruments in general?
In general, that they used in their mummification, in their surgeries and everything. And they were dedicated to Imhotep. And Imhotep was, of course, a vizier, was astronomer, and also he was a physician doctor. But later on the 26th dynasty, he was worshipped as a god and identified with the Greek god Asclepius.
Sir, I'm afraid we did run out of time, but we did enjoy very much talking about this beautiful governorate of Aswan. And from here, I invite all Egyptians, and especially the people who are having the mid-year vacation with their kids, to go and visit this beautiful governorate.
And it's subsidized by the government.
Indeed, because it's a very beautiful place to be visited. You will enjoy your time, the weather, and of course by letting your children know much about their history and the history of Egypt. Mr. and Dr. Mohammed Nabil, our Egyptologist, thank you very much for your precious input. It's always a pleasure
to have you, sir.
Thank you.
It's time to say goodbye. My name is Nermina Abdurrahman, and I had all the pleasure to have with me my dear colleague, Mr. Rabia. Thank you very much. Tomorrow is another day with another crew, and it's goodbye for now.
Okay.